party favors. Flowers for the pretty ladies.
Jack off the neck.
Got too many flaps. Maybe some guys.
Come on, man. You gotta shake something for him.
A little bit of an intro. My name is Salvatore Testa II.
I'm going to sit in a chair and rub my nipples like Jenna Tellenbach.
Activismo is a division of the Cult of the Dead Cow, along with the Ninja Strike Force. Today, we are releasing a major software project called ScatterChat. Let me give you a little background about Hacktivismo. We are a human rights and technology group. We're focusing on combating censorship, specifically state-sponsored censorship. So what's going on in China, Middle East, Iran, those countries. I always find it funny how people in this conference all talk trash about the U.S. government. The U.S. government's got nothing on the Middle Eastern governments, the Chinese governments, etc. Those are the very evil governments. ScatterChat is a hacktivist weapon. It's designed to empower human rights activists and political dissidents working in hostile territories.
Hey, this is important, guys. People's lives are on the line because this man's work. No pressure.
ScatterChat is a hacktivist weapon designed to help political dissidents and human rights activists operating in hostile territories. It is a friendly fork of the game software. It adds strong end-to-end encryption over the standard IM network, so that's AOL Instant Messenger, Yahoo, MSN, etc. All those protocols that are what?
You guys still want a protector?
No.
You don't want a protector or no? Sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Take anyone else want a protector?
I'll take it.
It's a friendly fork of the game software. Adds strong end-to-end encryption over the IM network, so that's AIM, Yahoo, MSN. It allows you to communicate in private over these centralized networks. A couple years ago, I looked up some stats. AOL Instant Messenger claims to have about 50 million users. This is a centralized network. 50 million users sending all these private IMs to each other. Okay, there's all kinds of private data going by. People in the corporate world use it to talk about all kinds of stuff. You guys might have seen it, like people in the corporate world, somebody sitting in one cubicle talking about company stuff to the guy in the other cubicle. It's got a good application in the corporate world, and also privacy advocates also. It includes integrated support for Tor. Tor allows anonymous connections to the IM server, so you can anonymously connect to AIM or Yahoo or MSN servers. It's integrated for high usability. You can use Tor with your standard AIM client already, but it's not integrated, so non-techies aren't going to do that, period. Also supports file transfers, secure file transfers you can send over ScatterChat. It supports 4 modes of operations. One, that it can function as a regular application, IM application, so you can just use it to talk to your friends that don't use it at all, or random people. 2 is secure mode, where you talk to other users of ScatterChat in secure mode, where everything's encrypted, all your messages. 3 is anonymous mode, where you just use Tor to connect anonymously to the centralized servers. That keeps you anonymous with respect to the centralized services. 4, the most fun one, anonymous and secure, we're using Tor to anonymously connect to the services, but also all your messages are encrypted. That state is very powerful because people that are eavesdropping on the conversation can't tell who is communicating or what is being said. Very powerful, especially for people operating in hostile territories in China, Iran, etc. Some security features includes resiliency against partial compromise through perfect forward secrecy. Perfect forward secrecy is a neat crypto trick which ensures that if one peer in a conversation, let's say the government was logging conversations for a couple months, they find out what one person's identity is, so say the Chinese government kicks down that person's door. They recover the key for that one person. It is not possible to decrypt previous conversations due to perfect forward secrecy. Your past conversations always remain private. The only way they can recover past conversations is by kicking both doors down. Includes immunity from replay attacks, which is a class of cryptographic attacks. Also, limited resistance to traffic analysis. It does that through two main features. One, all messages are aligned to 32-byte blocks, so the message lengths are obfuscated. Also, suppression of typing notifications. That also hinders traffic analysis. Operating systems, it works on Windows, Linux, Mac OS. It's open source. Right now there's a Windows installer and the Unix sources only. Pretty soon I'm going to get Mac OS X think builds, Linux RPMs, all that stuff's coming. And this is only the beginning. Right now version 2.0 is in release candidate mode, release candidate phase. Includes elliptic curve cryptography. Very hot stuff. Very sexy. I'm rolling in right now support for the elliptic curve digital signature algorithm and the elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman. Very, very sexy.
That's the whole 6.
Huh?
That's the whole 6.
Yes. Version 3 is already planned. I got some code written for that. That's going to roll in PKI. We might see secure VoIP. We might see secure webcam support. Oh yes. Oh yes. Everybody's here thinking, wow, that's really sexy. I need to help out. Here's a list of things we can use help with. Programmers. Programmers who know C. It helps if you know security. If you don't, that's okay. You can send patches to us. We'll review them for security also. But C programmers we need. Language translators, specifically Chinese, Arabic, and Farsi. Those are the areas of the world that we are targeting with this application. We need translations for those languages.
Knowing those 3 is a good job skill otherwise. There are many people that will hire you in this country if you know those 3 languages.
Another way you can help,
other countries.
Another way you can help train human rights activists on how to use this. Train them at the grassroots level. It'll spread out from there. Find chapters of Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and train them. I'm starting to do that myself, personally. We need QA testers to test out the bills, like the police candidate bills. We need help testing with that. It's not a very sexy job, QA testing, but it's very, very helpful. It helps drive the project forward. Documentation. We're targeting non-technical people here, so documentation is very, very important. I need help maintaining the documentation, keeping it up to date, making sure, proofreading. Here's an example. Get the PDF, print out the PDF, give it to your mom. Tell her to read it. Ask her what confuses you. If there's something that confuses her, there's a problem with the documentation. That's the audience, non-technical people. I also need package maintainers. We got somebody right here, this res, handling FreeBSD packages. We also need OpenBSD, NetBSD packages, and Ubuntu. The great news is we still got an ace up our sleeve, Hacktivismo. We have pretty much an entire deck up our sleeve. We've got other projects coming out in various stages. Some are just cool ideas that we've thrown around. Others we have solid write-ups, a solid design. It's just waiting for some coders. We're just waiting for some time to pop up. Others are in the coding phase right now. And so I'd like to give a big thanks to the Cult of the Dead Cow, the CDC Ninja Strike Force, and other members of Hacktivismo. It was a big team effort. There's no I in team.
There's no we in team either.
There is an M and an E.
There's a meat in team.
All right, you can download it right now. ScatterChat.com is where you can get it at. We got CDs right now, but we're not going to pass them out yet. We got official CDs with enhanced content. Okay. But I'd like to open it up for a Q&A session before we start handing out the CDs. Yes.
So you intend this to be used in areas that have, that are oppressed. How do you plan on getting any sort of mind share in those areas if they are so heavily controlled?
Yeah. So I can actually be able to speak a little bit to that. What goes on with the Chinese firewalls that do a lot of email content filtering, where they examine the entire email, and then for URLs or any kind of internet content, they do keyword searches. So they do have a great deal of accessibility to the internet. A lot of the issues for them come about with trying to get things like trying to fetch a page from New York Times, and it mentions someone in the URL specifically, then that page won't be able to be loaded. So given the amount of business interests that are going on in China, they keep on trying to come up with ways of doing specific amounts of repression over the internet, but not enough so that it hinders the business interests. So there is a gap there. It's not like North Korea where they're completely cut off from the world. There is a high degree of connectivity. There is people who can read about these things and download these things.
So what about Tor denying? So what we see, for instance, that the Tor traffic from Iran has been going down for the last 6 months steadily because they seem to have found a method to deny Tor these areas.
You can deny Tor anywhere.
Yeah. More information and more write-ups and analysis of how they're doing this would be very, very useful.
And we have no clue, we just see the sort of statistics.
In order to use the file transfer feature, do you need to touch them all in your firewall?
No, but it's dependent upon the protocol it's working over. ScatterChat works over the other protocols like AIM, MSN, Yahoo, so it depends on those protocols. MSN works through, I know for a fact, works through firewalls. Just
So it's just another protocol, it's going to be integrating a game and all that? Or is it just a totally different kind of protocol? Is it going to be integrated? Because game can do lots of different things.
It's a fork of game. It's a friendly fork of game.
Is it like game CC, or is it going to be, you know what I mean? Is it going to support all different protocols too?
Yes. Yeah, there's some older protocols like the Napster protocol. Like, I'm not going to support that.
Well, yeah.
But yeah.
There's other new ones coming out too.
Yeah, it'll support those for sure.
They're actually more secure.
Right next to him.
What version of game are you guys for about?
Currently an older version 1.3 with security patches applied to it. When the version 2 of game comes out, I'm going to resynchronize, and that's what I'm talking about, a friendly fork, because it's not like here's the point and then we're going to go off to here and stay like that. We're going to keep resynchronizing. My project is just to keep adding security to the game mainline tree. That's the idea.
And you'll be sending the packet back up that way if there's anything?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not going to do any IM development. I'm just going to do, fitting security onto that. So that's why I'm not competing against the mainline tree. Yep.
Well, if this becomes very popular, and hopefully it will, certainly the governments would take more notice. Is there any way, does it blend into other protocols? Is it identifiable that they feel just break firewall of China, start blocking that protocol?
Well, for one, you don't necessarily need to use the centralized services, AIM, Yahoo, MSN. There's Jabber servers that you can set up yourself that it runs through. So you can set up your own network. So like activists and dissidents can set up their own things and communicate through them. So within the country, not even passing through the firewall. In the future, if there are other firewall hopping technologies, we can integrate those into it as well.
In the aspects for the Chinese firewall specifically, most of their content control is done at the border itself. There are several hops, maybe 3 or 4 hops that you go through. When you trace route through, you'll see it bouncing within the same network. That's where the majority of the content filtering is. They have recently started to push it down to the metropolitan area. But as of right now, internal to the country, especially on several of the newer commercial networks that are popping up in China, there is limited amount I think throwing CDs ranks up there with throwing the raw chicken. But just as dangerous. No, we'll keep it noted. I didn't say we're stopping.
Right, first, then you can beat your record.
I'm not waiting to catch something. So I'm going to dispute your comment about QA not being sexy. When basically hackers take software and look for vulnerabilities, that's quality assurance testing. It's just that it's happening, post-release rather than as part of the process. And actually, we really need, friendly forces to work through this software and find the vulnerabilities or any issues with it, before the enemy does. Because otherwise, what if there's something that, you've missed or one of us have missed, and, they find a chink in the armor.
That's absolutely true. It's funny is that what everyone thinks that the perfect job for them will be as a hacker in industry, when in reality the perfect job for them is actually doing QA. Really, so some of the best QA people I've seen in the world are ones that used to be members of the hacker community and used to just break software, and then they go break software in industry, and that makes software better for everyone.
Hold on, the guy that I hit in the head with. I'm gonna throw this, don't get hit.
Play softball.
What encryption algorithm does that? What encryption algorithm does
The question was, what does the current encryption algorithm use? I'm actually going to be talking about the cryptographic protocol tonight at 7 p.m. in my own presentation. Area B, I'm going to go over all that stuff. I can't tell who wants to ask a question, who wants to see.
These guys were smart, sit on the front row.
They have the ability part that you mentioned
OTR is, from the technical standpoint, OTR is pretty solid. There's a lot of cool toys out there that just barely miss the mark of becoming a hack-just application. There's so many cool toys out there that just aren't polished up enough. There's a lot of toys out there that just target the techie crowd. There's poor documentation out there, bad user interface.
That's the problem I have from getting my friends, everyone I know to use OTR, is setting it up.
Exactly, that's what they need.
Just wondering, this seems like a much easier alternative, but feature-wise, they can cover everything that OTR does.
It doesn't do, at this point, deniability. I'm analyzing deniability. I'm in the process of looking at the crypto protocol and thinking about that. I'm not entirely sure what their threat model was in terms of deniability. It's an interesting cryptographic idea, but in terms of practicality, I'm still analyzing.
I think a very interesting central message that Joe's talking about here is that we, as a community, are decent at producing new applications, but we are horrible at producing usable applications. Absolutely horrible. And a good example of this is how many people have installed Ubuntu Linux? Anyone? Okay, I use Ubuntu. How many people use to run Slackware? How much better is Ubuntu than Slackware?
Hell no.
It's no, from a usability standpoint. All right. Usability, the thing is, it's out of the box, it fucking works, right? Slackware, you have to beat the thing around until everything works. Why? No other reason other than someone went in and cleaned up each little tiny thing like X driver recognition and things like that. The software is exactly the same. They just put a lot of work and made their mission to be usable. And that's something as a community we do not go out of our way to do, because let's be frank, it's not, we're almost like writing software for each other rather than writing for the world of outside of us. And what we really have to do is start taking that community into consideration.
I'll take that a bit further. I'll say that there's a lot of people that tend to seem to be writing, open source techniques, and then turn around and, rather than work on the documentation, end up selling books that explain how their stuff, works.
Gotta buy the ramen.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Everybody's, you talk about like Iran and wherever you go, like everyone's talking about China. How much, and that's how much
resistance did we do?
Right, like for this project? Well, I've got in general.
There is, we have contacts with the Open Ed Division that puts out those big reports. They do a lot of
Hey, we aren't done! Where are you guys going?
research.
Close the doors.
Sit. Seal the doors. If you leave now, you will not get the antidote.
We read all those things. In terms of this project, it was pretty much straightforward. Rights activists need security and anonymity in their messages. That was pretty simple and straightforward. Same with the political business. So in terms of this project, we didn't really need to go out and do our own research all that much. We just had to gather all kinds of stuff, polish it, and document it.
How are you going to get it? Because they got a lot of keyword filters.
The hackers in China can bypass the firewall. If you guys were put into China, you guys would get this stuff.
A lot of average.
And you guys would then distribute it.
Yeah, they don't drop it. They just make fake networks.
What's that?
They don't. The Chinese firewalls don't drop any packets. They just make the fake ones to turn them on.
Well, does anyone know the tool? It's called TCP kill. It's package of DSNet.
Yeah, a fake FIN packet.
Say fake FIN packets back. A lot of times they may not get the TTL right. It won't work. It's not.
It's like 64.
Yeah, it's easy to recognize exactly where the network is and what packets to filter from them. It's not that hard.
There's a piece that you need to remember when you think about that whole geographic scenario. Think of the number of businesses within the United States that are now offshoring to places like China, and the connectivity models between United States businesses and their offshore locations, and the actual network topography that exists there. There is no concept between, say, Office A in Chicago or Atlanta or New York and Office B in Shenzhen or anywhere in China. The connectivity model is straight pipe for them. So IPsec connections on both sides, or some kind of VLAN split setup, or some kind of tunneling mechanism. People getting jobs over there with American companies are now riding on top of the corporate networks that they use every day. So the Chinese firewall scenario is slowly deteriorating with the increased amount of commerce generated between the two countries.
And that's absolutely correct. That's why they're trying to push it down the metropolitan area, because they realize they can no longer control it at the national level. There's also two large networks in China. One that was built by a government, one that was built by a private company. The one that was built by the government was built with censorship in mind and then connectivity afterwards, and the one that was built by a private company is built with connectivity in mind, and then the government said, hey, you need these censorship functionalities. So when you look at those two networks, basically the censorship does not work very well in a commercial one, but you get great connectivity, and all the companies say, we want to be on this network because we want to get our business done. So to feed into what Jamie was just saying, as we get more business penetration in China, it'll be harder and harder for them to actually try to maintain the system. And so with this large amount of business engagement, we're able to get some traffic through, or a large amount of traffic through.
So you are aiming to make a product, a application that is intended for the completely average clueless computer user. Are those really the people who are going to be using it to the effect that you are looking for? Are the completely average computer users going to be members of the resistance? It seems as though a member of a resistance is going to necessarily have developed methods for communicating with other members of their resistance.
That's not true. Human rights activists, I've met with them before, they're largely non-technical. They do not have an understanding of basic security theory, never mind any kind of details of computer security. I'm not going to name names, but I did meet with a group, and they need a lot of training.
Well, I guess what I'm driving at is, how do they communicate right now?
Unsecurely. It's
In best case, the personal courier.
yeah, it's they communicate with no encryption, with email, with ions, no encryption.
The other big protocol is QQ. They use this, it's an IM protocol called QQ. It's just a IM targeted at Chinese people. That's very popular. They're using AIMOR to communicate overseas. You have to understand, though, you don't have a political movement until the average person on the street's interested. If you have a bunch of people in San Francisco protesting something, no one gives a shit. If you have, and I know this for a fact, I live in San Francisco. If you have, when you have average people going out and protesting, then things will change. A good example is that in the 1950s, we had a lot of these civil defense drills with the belief that we're going to be in nuclear war very soon. And in Manhattan, there was this woman with an infant that when the civil defense drill would go on, keep in mind, these things, you have to clear the streets, you have to go underground and to keep underground for an hour and then come back up. You know, this is what happens when the Russians are coming. She sat out in Central Park with her infant and refused to go underground and said that you're going to kill us anyway, you know, if you have this war, so I'm going to prevent you from doing this. And the next time there was a civil defense drill, hundreds of women with infants were out in Central Park and in larger and larger numbers. So a political movement actually becomes legitimized when the average person, it becomes a concern of the average person and they participate in it. So these are the pieces of people we need to target with the software.
Where and how can like hackers go to help people, human rights activists, and how can we reach them?
Well, there's an organization set up already. The question was, where do hackers go to help human rights activists? There is an organization set up already called Privaterra, based up in Canada, which does just that. They hold workshops they meet with Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, those big groups, and they train them. This is how you use PGP. This is how you use, this and that. And they'll train them, like, how do you handle security threats? How do you, why is it important to keep patches up to date? This is how you keep patches up to date. All those things. They're already set up. They're a good source to go to. I encourage you guys hook up with each other. Find, go to meetings. Go to Amnesty International grassroots meetings. Train them. Find them. Chapters are all over the place. They're easy to find in big cities. They're easy to find. Go introduce yourself. Say, I want to train you in technology. Here's why it's important. A lot of people don't know why it's important. You have to start out and say, this is why security is important. Yeah. And then build from there. You have to motivate them. Next question. Any?
Kevin, you want to say?
Do we have any?
But you want to, yeah, we got one of the CDs, but you want to talk about your new list.
Well, like I mentioned before, we are looking for volunteers, Hacktivismo. We got these new projects coming out.
This project you can do right now is sign up for the list.
Yeah, you guys.
Get on it.
Yes, you guys want to help out directly in the ScatterChat project? I'll take email addresses. We got a mailing list set up. We're going to be talking about, bugs, new features, implementing these things, testing these things, and extending them.
I'll put together your testing framework.
All right.
Sexy.
Yes.
Yes.
Very sexy.
Hot.
One more time. We're from Hacktivismo and the Cult of the Dead Cow and the Ninja Strike Force. ScatterChat.com is where you can get this software. We have some CDs left up here. You guys want to volunteer? Come up and talk to me. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you guys very much for your time. Translations and all that.
Keep your head down.
Warm joke. If you need help
Remind me of those people.
It's done.
Candy! Have a banana!
Tell me Q8 is sexy. Q8 is sexy.
We have a wide mirror. We can host
Everyone loves
Everyone not sexy. However, it's kind of like the
How you doing?
All the time. What number do you know? My cell phone. Where do you things to put on the database? It's our things on the database. If it happens, it's going to happen.
Party favors. Flowers for the pretty ladies.
Jack off with that
Got too many flowers. Maybe a human rights and technology group. We're focusing on combating censorship, specifically state-sponsored censorship. So what's going on in China, Middle East, Iran, those countries. I always find it funny how people in this conference all talk trash about the U.S. government. The U.S. government's got nothing on the Middle Eastern governments, the Chinese governments, etc. Those are the very evil governments. ScatterChat is a hacktivist weapon. It's designed to empower human rights activists and political dissidents working in hostile territories.
Come on, man, you gotta shake something for him.
A little bit of an intro. My name is Salvatore Testa. I'm a member of
chair and rub my nipples like Jenna Sallenbach.
Activismo is a division of the Cult of the Dead Cow, along with the Ninja Strike Force. Today, we are releasing a major software project called ScatterChat. Let me give you a little background about Hacktivismo. We are a Messenger, Yahoo, MSN, etc. All those protocols that are what?
You guys still want a protector?
No.
You don't want a protector or no? Sure?
Yeah, that's cool.
Take anyone else want a protector?
I'll take it.
It's a friendly port of the game software adds strong end-to-end encryption over the IM network, so that's AIM, Yahoo, MSN. It allows you to communicate in private over these centralized networks. A couple years ago, I looked up some stats. AOL Instant Messenger claims to have about 50 million users. This is a centralized network.
Hey, this is important, guys. People's lives are on the line because this man's work. No pressure.
ScatterChat is a hacktivist weapon designed to help political dissidents and human rights activists operating in hostile territories. It is a friendly fork of the game software. It adds strong end-to-end encryption over the standard IM network, so that's AOL Instant